welcome to the second installment of my reviewing the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror series for each day in October. I know we are now on October 3rd. I kind of dropped the ball last night and crashed out before I could get this recorded and posted, my bad. So I am going to try and do 2 of them today to get back on track so I don't fall way behind like I do with everything else on the planet, you know? So, anyways, the second second episode of the Treehouse Horror series was in Series 3, or Series 3, wow, Jen, US shows, not British shows, Season 3. And this one, they didn't really have, like, proper titles for each of the segments. It was just, like, Lisa's Dream, Bart's Dream, and Homer's Dream, because this one, all of the stories are nightmares that they had. It opens again with Marge doing a little intro like she did with the first one, trying to give a warning about don't let little kids watch this because it's too scary, but then backpedals with, but you didn't listen last year, so why would you listen this year? Do what you want, basically. And then it has a much more abridged version of the cemetery zoom, pan through, whatever, like they did in the first one. Far fewer headstones, but I totally approve of the Jim Morrison one that they had there with lots of lyrics from Doors songs on there. I was like, that's a nice touch. And the vague hippie, I mean, they show the hippie girl first, but for a split second there's a guy that may or may not be Jim Morrison actually alive and well, which would again be like the converse of the joke from the first one with the Paul McCartney one for the Paul is dead clues thing. Well, this is the Jim Morrison is alive clues. I was like, that is so freaking well played. They are playing the long game here. I love it. So, anyways, premise of this one that sets up the entire episode. It's a lot more quickly paced. It took a bit more to frame it the first time, but this one, basically, Simpsons went out trick-or-treating, they got a crap ton of candy, and no sooner has Marge told the kids that you can each have one piece of candy tonight before you go to bed, and they are all just tearing into the massive pile of candy on the frickin' floor. So, Marge warns them, well, you're all gonna have nightmares then from eating that much candy before bed. And they're like, we'll be fine. So next thing we see is a shot of Lisa in bed, falling asleep. She's got, like, a crap ton of candy wrappers around her. I'm like, oh, Lisa, my spirit animal. But, regardless, so she's drifting off. You know she's about to have a nightmare. It's a Halloween episode. Of course she is. And it's immediately framed. You can tell probably where it's gonna go even before they show it, because it shows them going to Morocco and they're in like a Middle Eastern bazaar. It's like, oh, I know what you're doing. And oddly, I don't consciously remember seeing this episode before this. I thought I had seen all of the early ones, and yet somehow there's one I missed. So I'm like, oh shit, one of these days I'm gonna have to go back through all the episodes and see if there's any others that somehow skated past me, but wow, how did I miss one of the Treehouse of Horrors all these years and not know it? Regardless, even with watching the whole thing, literally nothing rang any bells, so I was like, I think I legitimately did not see that one before, but... So, they're in this Middle Eastern bazaar, and this one really sketchy looking table, the dude is trying to sell a monkey's paw. It's like, okay, I know where it's going. Although, because it's The Simpsons, instead of it having 3 wishes, it has 4 fingers up, I believe. Because Simpsons. So, anyway. It adds to the joke that much more. Feel bad for Marge. She got screwed out of having a wish, but that's okay. So, even though Homer is warned about the monkey's paw and its curse, he buys it anyway. Because, of course he does. So he gets it home, and Marge is like, oh, get that nasty thing away from me, I don't want that near me. And he puts it on the table, and they're all sitting around it, trying to think, what should we wish for? And Bart and Lisa are, like, bickering back and forth what they should have a wish for. While they're duking it out, Maggie picks it up, and she can't even talk, yet one of the fingers, curls down, and next thing we see is a limousine pull up in front of their house. Homer picks up Maggie, oh, good baby! And to the door comes a dude with a pillow with a new pacifier on it. Maggie's wishes are simple. I love Maggie. And then they drive away, and that was literally all they brought. So, I believe the next wish was Bart's, and he wanted to be rich and famous. So, there's all this money falling from the sky, filling their living room, spilling out of their wallets, it's everywhere. And next thing we know, like, they're all over billboards, there's CDs of them, they apparently have a TV show, they have, like, this, that, and the other, how very meta of them. And the joke is that, I think it's the pastor's wife saying something about, you know, they started out cute and lovable, but now they're just annoying. It's like, you know, by the time this episode aired the first time around, that's probably about how people were starting to feel about The Simpsons, because, oh boy, howdy, do I remember the merch that was everywhere in the frickin' early 90s, and just how immersive they were in advertising and spilling it over into other shows. There was even that one little segment for fricking Sesame Street they got into. Sesame Street, which I'm pretty sure a demographic young enough to be watching Sesame Street probably shouldn't be watching The Simpsons, but then again, look how little I was and I was watching it, so I mean, I really can't talk because I was watching both at the same time, but anyway, then again, look at how old I am now, and still watching both at the same time. Anyway, regardless, so, obviously, it seems all awesome, just like every take on the monkey's paw story ever, because somebody always wishes for that. That is like a trope. It is basically an unwritten law. Somebody has to wish for that just so it can backfire. Maggie's didn't really backfire. She was like the one lucky one. But the fame and fortune one, yeah, obviously the townspeople eventually turn on them and they hate them and everything. And it's just all sorts of bad. So now Lisa gets a hold of the monkey's paw and she wishes for world peace, which sounds very noble in theory. Except now, oh, the aliens are getting a call back from the last one of these, and now they're like, oh, stupid humans, because they're so peaceful, now they won't fight us when they take over the world! Joy. So, there's an alien invasion that they are now dealing with. Oh my god. So Homer has one wish left. What does he wish for? A turkey sandwich. A very specific turkey sandwich that he thinks could not possibly go wrong because he is so specific with everything about this sandwich. Again, like Maggie, his wishes are simple. But the turkey is dry. And you would think that this is like the worst curse ever because the turkey was dry. Oh, the humanity. So he's going outside to toss this damn thing. And Flanders is outside and he's like, oh, is that one of those monkey paw things? I always wanted one of those. And Homer's like, yeah, piece of junk. Hey, you want it? Yeah, I want it. Gives it to him. Oh, magically when Flanders uses it and does his wishes, oh, they go great. He has, like, a castle next thing we know, and, like, the townspeople are, like, carrying him on their shoulders, and they love him. Yeah. This... The fact that this was Lisa's nightmare is kind of hilarious to me, and then she goes running to Bart's room, and she's like, I'm scared, I had a nightmare, can I sleep in your bed? He's like, no. She's like, I have a candy necklace for you. And chomp, 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 eats it up, and fine, get in. Be quiet, get in. And next thing we know, he's asleep. And his dream, I'm sure it's a parody of something. The style is way too deliberate. It's gotta be based on some movie or some show. I just don't know off the top of my head what it is. But basically, Bart in this one has some kind of telekinesis or telekinetic powers of some kind. And basically he can wreak havoc with just his mind. So he's walking into the kitchen and the rest of the family's like terrified of him. They're so scared of making him mad in any way because he could do anything to any one of them at any point. Yeah, that would suck, having to live with somebody like that. Like, just think about the reality of that. If that were, like, real life, that would suck so hard. But, I mean, he could, like, start fires with his mind. I think he, like, looked at Snowball and, like, turned her into, like, a fire-breathing clown cat thing that, like, set Santa's little helper on fire. Like, it's like, oh my god! And conversely, set the drapes in the kitchen on fire. It's like, oh boy. Yeah, and he goes around and he's like basically got everyone walking on eggshells around him, even at school, even with Principal Skinner. He's got him on the loudspeaker singing, "Hello, my honey, hello, my baby, da 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 da." It's like, oh my god, Looney Tunes throwback, yes. But so there's that. He's got Mrs. Krabappel changing everyone else's answers on the test to match his version of the answers. And they're hilarious, terrible answers. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, I can see that if he had the means to do it. It's just shit like that, just constantly. And he comes home and he wants to watch Krusty, and oh, apparently he's had Krusty working for 300-something consecutive hours non-stop on the air just because he wished it into fruition, apparently. And he's like all ragged and everything. He's like, let's go over to Sideshow Mel's Happy Pills! It's like, oh my god, Krusty. And then Homer comes in and he wants to watch the football game. And all Bart has to do is just stare at him, and suddenly Homer disappears! And next thing you know, the football game on the TV, oh, he is turned into the ball and has been punted. Oh, Bart, you little shit. And next thing we know, he's home with his head bandaged, and I forget what he said or did, but Bart turns him into a Jack-in-the-Box this time. It's like that. And somehow, with him as a Jack-in-the-Box, I think Marge decides that, or no, it's not Marge that decides it. She decides to take him to a child psychologist, and the child psychologist decides, this boy craves attention. He needs more quality time with his parental figures. That's why he's acting out. So even though Homer's Jack-in-the-Box, yeah, they go do all these father-son activities even though he is a Jack-in-the-Box. Like, they go fishing, he's a Jack-in-the-Box. They go on a roller coaster, he's a Jack-in-the-Box. It's funny. Like, it sounds stupid, my retelling of it, but it's funny. And after the fact, it's just like, oh wow, this was actually really nice, having all this quality time with you, Dad. He's just like, yeah, I mean, if only there were some way that you could give me my body back. He's like, oh yeah, sure thing. And he gives it back to him. And they hug it out, and this is when Bart wakes up. It's scary, that's a nightmare. Me and Dad get along, oh my god. Mushy stuff. Now he and Lisa are both running to Marge and Homer's bed, because they're having nightmares. And she's like, Jesus. But anyways, so, there's that. Now it's Homer's turn to have a nightmare. Marge didn't eat the candy, so she's excluded from this, but Homer's nightmare. Basically, it starts off with Mr. Smithers and Mr. Burns. Well, I guess just Smithers. Why did I say Mr. Smithers? I think I combined Mr. Burns and Smithers into one person, as they should be. But, Smithers and Mr. Burns are watching all the security cameras around the power plant, and they're looking for somebody to fire just because they can. Homer's sleeping on the job, so they fire him on the spot, because why the hell not? And they're just like, yeah, we should just find a better optimal worker. And this leads to Mr. Burns is going to build himself the perfect worker, because apparently he's a mad scientist now. Okay. So now Homer's out of work, and he's looking through the newspaper with the kids, looking at job listings, trying to find something else he's qualified to be able to do. And he takes, like, a gravekeeper job, or a grave digger job, my bad. And while he's out there, he falls asleep on the job, because it's Homer! And it's that same night that he's out there that Mr. Burns and Smithers are going through the graveyard, looking for a corpse to steal the brain from for their robot. They find Homer! And they bag him up, and they drag him back, and even though he's still alive, they, like, saw his head up and pull his brain out and stick it into the robot. And as he's pulling his brain out, I found it a nice touch, as a Wizard of Oz fan. All of a sudden, while he's pulling the brain out, Mr. Burns is humming. I was like, oh my god! Well played. Well played. Got a Wizard of Oz reference here. So, he's doing that. There was actually a second Wizard of Oz reference in this, too. When he's basically bitching out the robot later. Because, you know, with it having Homer's brain, guess who it's acting like? Even though it's a robot, it's still sleeping on the job. But, he calls it like a clanking, clattering, califerous. Basically, it's like what the Wizard of Oz calls the Tin Man while he's still like his great and powerful Oz self. It's basically a slight rewording of that, and I caught it like the second he said like califerous. I was like, oh, I see what he did there. I see what he did there. Oh my god. Which also was proof that I definitely had not seen this episode before, because I would have lost my shit if I had seen that before, especially if I had seen that as a little kid when basically I would rewatch Wizard of Oz every single day around that age, so I'm like, I would have noticed that. So I am pretty confident I had never seen this episode before last night. But regardless, 2 Wizard of Oz references aside, I'm kind of hoping there's more pop culture references throughout these that just keep making my day as I watch them. But anyways, yeah, so it takes a couple days before the Simpsons even notice that Homer's gone. It's like, wow, that's really bad. But in that amount of time, Mr. Burns has already grown tired of his robot worker that acts just like Homer, and he would be perfectly happy just to throw that brain away. It's only because Smithers is like, yeah, you should probably give him his brain back, because I'm sure his family want him back. Now, they're assuming that Homer's dead, and they're just going to give the body back in full, intact. But as they're stitching his head back shut, putting his brain back in, with every stitch, ow, 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 it's like, oh, he is alive. You win, Smithers. I owe you a Coke. But, so I was just like, oh my god. And he goes back, and next thing we know, he wakes up from his nightmare, and he's like having a panic attack. Mr. Burns' head is sewn onto his body! I was like, ah! And he thinks he's still dreaming! And then it turns out it's not a dream, and this is the ending of the episode, and like, it even goes back and forth a little bit with showing a little bit more of him living with Mr. Burns attached to his body as a second head, but oh my god. Oh, I remember how it happened, because the robot fell on him. That's what it was, and why he needed another body. That's what it was. Sorry, I missed a very crucial part of this episode in retelling it. It's taken me so long to retell this. You may as well have just watched the damn episode instead of listening to my shitty retelling of it, but regardless. I personally quite enjoyed this whole episode. I think they stepped it up from the first one to the second one by quite a bit. So I would give this one like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Like, not quite perfect 5-star rating, but getting close. It was very enjoyable. The only thing that threw me was just the pacing felt a little off throughout it, but other than that, like, it felt too rushed. I mean, I realize that they have a very tight time limit to work within, but the first one didn't feel rushed. This one, it felt like they raced through it a little too, excuse me, Albert. They raced through it a little bit too hard. If they had slowed down even just teeniest bit, made it like 1 or 2 minutes longer total, probably would be enough to totally fix that. But that's why I'm like giving it an almost perfect rating, because it's close. It's close. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I am looking forward to watching the third one later, and getting that thrown up on here too, so anyways. That's it for this one, guys, so sorry that I've been babbling for way too long. Can we tell who just drank their coffee? Yes, we can! So, anyways, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, hit that notification bell icon so you never miss an upload, leave comments down below, make sure you're following my social media accounts, my Facebook fan page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Etsy, everything it's all down below, and if you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to help support it, the donation link, as always, is down in the description. Anyway, guys, till next time, bye-bye.